Hello, my name is Mike McNerney, and today we will be interviewing Maureen Matassa, who is the CEO of SADCAS, the SADC Accreditation Service. And SADCAS is the first multi-economy accreditation body in Africa. Maureen, welcome.
Thank you, Mike.
Maureen, first of all, if I could ask you, what is SADCAS?
Well, Mike, SADCAS is the Southern African Development Community Accreditation Service. It is the first multi-economy accreditation body in the world. SADCAS was established as part of the SADC infrastructure for standardization, quality assurance, metrology, and accreditation. So it's a multi-economy accreditation body which is servicing the accreditation needs of 13 SADC member states. As you know, Mike, within the SADC region of 15 countries, we have 2 countries, South Africa and Mauritius. We have got national accreditation bodies, SANAS and Mauritius, respectively. So the rest of the 13 SADC member states are serviced by SADCAS. Now that is Angola, Botswana, Democratic Republic of Congo, Lesotho, Malawi, Mozambique, Madagascar, Seychelles, Zambia, Zimbabwe. Which ones have I left?
I was going to ask you.
Namibia, Swaziland,
and
Lesotho. So those are the 13 SADC member states that are serviced by SADCAS.
Okay, so how is SADCAS structured? What is SADCAS's legal status?
Now, SADCAS was incorporated as a private company, not for profit, under the Botswana Companies Act. Now, being registered as a private company, SADCAS has got its own objects, rules of operation. So the Article 15B of the Annex to the SADC Protocol on Trade, the TBT Annex to the SADC Protocol on Trade, actually gives us the mandate to operate as a multi-economy accreditation body. We also have a memorandum of understanding between SADC and SADCAS.
Okay, so unlike other accreditation bodies, like a national accreditation body, which might report to a ministry, could be reporting to a Ministry of Trade, for instance, SADCAS is reporting to SADC, is that correct?
Yes, SADCAS falls under the Directorate of TIFI in SADC. TIFI stands for Trade, Industry, Finance and Investment. But however, effectively we are reporting to the ministries responsible for trade and industry in all the 13 SADC member states that we are servicing.
Okay, very good. Now, could you provide us some reasoning behind the establishment of a multi-economy accreditation body like SADCAS?
Yes, now Mike, SADCAS was, the SADCAS model, the multi-economy model was actually conceptualized way back in 1996. Now the reasoning behind the model, a multi-economy model, was taking into account the cost of establishing an accreditation body. Secondly, we were looking at the cost of sustaining that accreditation body. Right. Now, when you are looking at cost of sustaining, you are taking into account the numbers of conformity assessment bodies that are operating in the individual countries. So that is the clientele base. Yeah. The other factor that we considered, Mike, was the limited resources within the region and the need to optimize those limited resources. And I'm talking of technical resources, I'm also talking of financial resources. Yeah. And then the final point that we took into account was the need to create an expertise base in accreditation in all these SADC member states that we service. Okay. So those are the main factors that we took into account in coming up with the model.
Very good. And how's it going?
Well, I think it's going fine. Mike, if I can just give you the history or the development that has taken place in SADCAS up to date. SADCAS was incorporated in 2005 after the conceptualization, which, as I said, goes back to 1996. So a good 10 years was spent trying to develop the model, getting approval of the model in the region, and also acceptance of the model internationally, being the first multi-economy accreditation body. And by April 2009, we had launched SADCAS. And by October the same year, 2009, we started offering services. Our first accreditation was in 2010, and then we embarked on the journey towards international recognition, which we achieved by November 2015. We are actually in the 7th year of operation as a multi-economy accreditation body. And as at end of December, we had already accredited 48 facilities in 8 SADC member states. We also had 31 applications from about 7 SADC member states under process. We also had 21 expressed interest in accreditation. At the same time, Mike, we had undertaken cumulatively 100 training courses throughout the region. So that's the development in SADCAS and where we are to date with the international achievement.
That's very impressive. Tell me, Maureen, what would you say has been your greatest challenge to date?
Mike, I would look at the challenges maybe in 3 critical areas. First of all, the clientele base, poor readiness of conformity assessment bodies towards accreditation. That has been one of the greatest challenges. What I'm trying to say here is the labs or the inspection bodies, the certification bodies that we are targeting for accreditation, their readiness towards accreditation has generally been very poor. And of course, that has impacted on our target achievements in terms of numbers of accreditation. But on that particular challenge, there have been quite a number of efforts over the past few years to try and address that challenge. Firstly, in terms of awareness creation, we are operating in a region where the concept of accreditation is fairly new, and therefore our thrust has been to try and raise awareness on the importance and benefits of accreditation, and of course to also market our services. The second one is assessors. The credibility of any accreditation body relies heavily on the competence of the assessors. 31st December 2015, we'd registered 48 technical assessors and 28 lead assessors. Now that pool is still very limited in terms of the field and the scope of accreditation services that we are providing or even that we anticipate. Furthermore, the geographical and language diversity in the region. That has also presented a challenge to SADCAS. Geographical in the sense that we are servicing 13 SADC member states. Ideally, we should have assessors that are locally based so that we can reduce the cost of accreditation. Added on to that, Mike, is the issue of language diversity. SADCAS is operating in a region where there are 3 official languages: English, Portuguese, as well as French. So we are directed by the ministers of trade or responsible for trade and industry to service in all those 3 official languages.
Right.
The current pool that we have is mainly English-speaking assessors. So we are still building the capacity of French and Portuguese-speaking assessors. Why is it a challenge? It's a challenge because the cost of training those assessors is very high, having to cover the language diversity.
In terms of advising governments on how to establish a multi-economy accreditation body, what advice would you provide in both of those areas on how to overcome those constraints?
My advice is to first make sure that you have the clientele base for the accreditation body. Now, having clientele base means you need to embark on awareness campaigns to create awareness on the importance and benefits of accreditation, not only amongst the conformity assessment bodies, but amongst the government policy makers, all the stakeholders, so that there is a demand for the service. Secondly, in terms of poor readiness, I would also advise governments and regions to put some time and effort to prepare these conformity assessment bodies for accreditation.
Can I interrupt? Would it be fair to say that technical assistance programs and projects in the past have concentrated on assisting the accreditation body to become established, but lacked the assistance provision to the conformity assessment bodies?
That's correct, Mike. And of course, this has created the problem of the base, the clientele base for the accreditation body. It's very well and good to put your efforts into establishing the body, but at the same time, you must create the clientele base.
Advice on assessors?
My advice on assessors is you need to embark on training of assessors, if possible, before you've even set up the accreditation body.
Okay. Now, I'm sure you're saving the best constraint to last, and that's probably money. How were you funded?
Yes, now SATCAS was funded by the Norwegian government. That funding was for a period of 5 years in a project which was on reducing technical barriers to trade through accreditation. The Norwegians gave us about 13 million Norwegian kroner, which translates to about 2.5 million US dollars. That was to set up and operationalize SATCAS. Unfortunately, that funding from the Norwegian government came to an end in March 2012, at a time when SATCAS had not yet reached break-even on operational costs. So that created problems for us in the sense that we then went into the next strategic period, 2012 to 2017, without funding. We then approached the governments of member states that are serviced by SATCAS to contribute towards SATCAS's sustainability. And by early 2013, the governments had committed to fund SATCAS operational deficit for the 5 years. The challenge that we faced, Mike, is that the funding was approved in 2013, and we had already gone into our second strategic period without any funding. So the Norwegians gave us some bridging fund, whilst the governments had indicated that they would start to contribute in the 2013-14 financial year.
Okay. I believe you've achieved a milestone recently in becoming a full member of ILAC as a signatory to the mutual recognition arrangement. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mike. We achieved signatory status for testing, testing in accordance with 17025, and also for calibration in accordance with ISO IEC 17025. We achieved this in October.
That's 2015.
2015, that's correct, yeah, 2015.
Well, Maureen, thank you very much for your time. It's been a very, very informative discussion, and we've covered quite a lot of detail that relates to the contents of our e-learning training program. So thank you very much for coming in today.
My pleasure, Mike.